Oh, yes. Just got back from the gym, got a nice shave, changed clothes, and here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Random Ramblings. Today, we're talking about football, specifically high school football from when I was in high school. Now, to be completely fair and honest, I like to think that when I was in high school, I was what some people might call a junior varsity All-American. But the numbers don't lie, and they don't say that at all. To get it out of the way, I played 2 years of high school football. I played in ninth grade, but ninth grade had its own team at my school, so the ninth grade just played other ninth grade school teams. So I don't really count that. But then I played 2 years. I played my sophomore and my junior year. I didn't play my senior year, but that's another story. Anyway, we're here to talk about those two little middle years. More specifically, my second year of playing high school football, which would be my junior year. I feel like I should mention, before I get into this story, that around this time, I was roughly 5'10", so above average height, not bad. But I only weighed maybe 145 pounds soaking wet. So, I had above average height, but I can't even call myself a toothpick because I was tall. I mean, I guess comparatively, I'm not a toothpick. I'm more of a kebab skewer because I was taller, but just an absolute rail. Just not any girth to me at all. Whatever. So because of this fact, the coaches liked to call me what they deemed a tweener. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good term to be called, but per their definition of said tweener, I was someone that was between a lineman and a back. So I wasn't big enough to be considered a lineman, but I wasn't necessarily skilled enough, I guess would be one way to put it, to be considered a back, such as a running back, a wide receiver, or a defensive back. And most of that was because in middle school, I was considered a lineman. I was very chubby. You got the baby fat. You haven't really worked out ever in your life. So you're just kind of hanging on to a bunch of baggage, a bunch of skin weight, fat, all that good stuff. I did hit my growth spurt between middle school and high school around 8th, 9th grade. So I grew like 4, 5, 6 inches, but I didn't gain any weight and I didn't lose any weight. So from like 5th grade till about 8th grade, I'm pretty sure I weighed the exact same over that 4-year period of time. I just got taller. So I went from a plump stump to our kebab skewer, as I so affectionately called myself a few minutes ago. But back to high school. Because I was said tweener, I was sentenced to becoming a tight end. Before any of you take that out of context, or you may not know what a tight end is. It's someone that normally plays on the line with the lineman, but they're deemed more athletic usually because sometimes they have the ability to run passing routes and catch passes and things of that nature. I would like to reiterate that I was very skinny at this time, to the point that I was not considered a lineman, but they put me in a position where I would have to play with linemen. But personally, I tried to make light of the situation because that's just who I am, right? At that point in time, I'd like to consider myself a beautifully interactive tackling dummy. And I say that because I was taller, like I said, and I had reasonably long arms, and I would try to block people, but I didn't really have the mass or the strength or the oomph on my person to effectively block said person or tackle said person or just move any person at all, which in hindsight maybe football wasn't the sport for me and may or may not have been one of the reasons why I didn't play my senior year. But I digress. I was great at practice for the older guys and the starters because I could act like I was blocking them. But because I couldn't actually block them due to my physical limitations, they had free reign to practice any and all Madden spin moves, swim moves, juke moves, rips, tears, anything they wanted to do, I was free reign there, and there was nothing I could do about it at all. But, hey, good job, man. Please don't hurt me. I'm small. Speaking of older guys that started, I didn't start varsity because there was one guy a year ahead of me, which when I was a sophomore, he was a junior. When I was a junior, he was a senior. Didn't start. He was bigger than me. He was stronger than me. And overall, he was just better. Just better than me, which is fine. He was a great guy. We were really good friends. That being said, I played all of the junior varsity time, which meant that as a tight end whose only, beacon of hope in playing the games is that you may get an opportune pass play called your way, I didn't get any of that. Junior varsity was, hey, let's take these 20 guys who have been tackling dummies for the past 2 hours at practice, and we'll ship them over to the field so they can play another team of 20 who've been tackling dummies for the past 2 hours, because they're not going to be playing on Friday nights. We'll just let them play on Monday. And it was rough. It was rough. However, things shifted. And one day, a little over halfway through my junior year, the moment came for me to shine, finally get that varsity start. The starting tight end, the guy I had talked about previously, he had told the coaches he was going to miss practice this one day. And we had the rule at our school that if you miss a practice, you have to sit out a half of a game. You miss 2 practices, you sit out the entire game. If you miss 3 practices, I don't know, they may find out where you live and go steal your dog from your house or something. I don't think we ever had anyone get to that point that didn't just quit the team. But he said he was going to miss. His reason for missing? He was going to the midnight release of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. He was buying the game at midnight, and he was skipping school the next day to play all day long. And what's crazier is that he did it. He stayed home and missed practice to play Advanced Warfare the entire day. And the coaches were mad. They were like, where is this guy? Why isn't he at practice? He told y'all he wasn't going to be there, and you laughed at him and thought he was joking, and then he did it. Whatever the case, with him missing practice, I was second, on the depth chart. So that means that I got the nod to start Friday night under the lights in a district game. And I should paint the scene there. We had a pretty good team that year. We were usually mediocre at best, just trying to make the playoffs. We had a pretty good team that year, and we had already all but secured a spot in the playoffs. And this game, it could only help us, right? So it couldn't knock us out of the playoffs, but if we won it, we could potentially get a higher seed in the playoffs. So I practiced with the starters all week. And I practiced hard and tried really hard not to act like my butthole was puckered up like a warhead and that I wasn't sweating buckets every single day at practice. And speaking of practice, I was there. I was blocking as well as I could manage. I was catching passes. I was at practice, so I was actually going to be able to play, which was good. But practices that week flew by. The fastest week of practices I think I had experienced in those 2 years. And Friday arrives, and we go through the day, and we get on the bus and travel down to where we were playing, and it's game time. So we're dressed out, we go through our pregame, we do our stretches, and the game starts. And we receive the ball first. And so I'm out there, my scrawny self, with all of these linemen and all of these very speedy boys playing running backs and wide receivers. And we get our first call from the coach. Rhino 7-2. If you're from my hometown and played football, it is a staple to that playbook and has been for years. And for those of you that don't know, Rhino 7-2 is just a standard running play to the right side of the field. You just line up in a very basic formation. The quarterback says ready, set, hut. He hands the ball to the running back, and he runs right and looks for a hole. Everyone has their blocking assignments on the line. He just has to find the hole, hit the hole, and try to run. Well, I lined up to the right of our right tackle, who at this point was probably pushing 300 pounds. He was a bigger guy. And my job was to climb up to the second line of the defense and block a linebacker. The only thing in my way was a defensive lineman right in front of me. So very simple job. Don't hit the guy right in front of you. Go around him, hit the linebacker. Seems simple, seems good. So I know what I have to do. I know my job. So we all get down on the line of scrimmage. Quarterback starts his cadence. Ready, set, hut. When I tell you, I was obliterated on that line. I do not know. Well, I know what happened. I don't know how it happened or how I couldn't prevent what happened from happening. I folded up like a lawn chair and crumpled to the ground. As soon as the ball was snapped, I was smashed between our right tackle, my teammate, and the defensive lineman that was in front of me that he was going to block. I thought I was going to be quick enough to get in between those two large gentlemen to get to my linebacker. I made a grave mistake. And when I tell you, that was my first play as a varsity football player, it leaves a lasting impression on you. I will tell you that.
Oh, I got hit so hard.
It was almost, I felt almost like a tube of toothpaste. You know, like those tube of toothpaste, there's just a little bit of toothpaste left. And you're like, I can get one more use out of this before I have to throw it away, right? So you're like mashing on it and squeezing it, trying to get it to come out. I felt like that, except they weren't just like mashing and like easing the toothpaste out of the tube. They were like, one of them was the countertop and the other one was like a cinder block, and I was just in the middle, and it just smacked me, and it just, toothpaste would have went everywhere. Luckily, no bodily fluids escaped me that I'm aware of in that instance. Oh man, I got absolutely smashed. The rest of the game was fine. After that first play, everything else was fine. I made smarter decisions on my blocking assignments. I didn't catch any passes or anything like that, which is whatever. We did lose, but that happens, you know. What are you going to do? I should mention that our original starting tight end, who was leaps and bounds better than me, he was eligible to play after halftime. Like I said before, if you missed one practice, you sat the first half. He only missed one practice. The coaches made the decision to leave me in for the second half of that game. I don't know why. It may have been a pity courtesy to me. Not 100% sure on that one. So me staying in for the second half did not help us win that game at all. I don't think I necessarily contributed to us losing. Don't get the wrong idea. But I definitely did not help us win in any sense or the imagination. But, yeah, that was my first varsity experience. And pretty much my only varsity experience. After that week, starting tight end goes back into his role as starting tight end. I get to watch the rest of our varsity games from the sideline, safe from harm of large linemen trying to pound me into a puddle. And I went back to being my blocking dummy at practice. So everything's all good. Eventually, after that season rolled around, that spring came our spring training that would have sent me into my senior year, where I would have been in line to be a starter. But we'll have to wait on that story for another time. Did I just cliffhanger my own YouTube video? You bet I did. So make sure to stick around on the channel to see when I do end up telling that second story and getting it posted. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like on the video. Be sure to drop a comment down below. Let me know if you have any sports stories, either similar to mine or hopefully better than mine if they didn't end up as poorly. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you know when I post my videos. I really hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Peace, guys. Take it easy.